Shame! So what's going on, guys? Welcome to Izak's Movie Reviews, and we're gonna go back in time to the 90s where, man, I just miss those movies. We don't get enough of those movies, especially nowadays, right? Everything is pretty much print, rinse, and repeat. And we get very, very similar movies nowadays, and I'm kind of tired of it, you know? Although I'm a movie buff, movie head, but, you know, sometimes you want to see a movie that gets to the point, something that's very funny, that's action driven, and something that you're gonna leave the theater having a ball with, something that you're gonna be thinking about later on. And we're gonna be talking about A Low Down Dirty Shame back from 1994. And you know, this movie stars Keenan, Ivory, Wayans, producer, writer, and creator of A Living Color. We have Jada Pinkett here in one of her earliest roles. She was definitely on the rise, and during this time with films like, you know, Sprung, Menace to Society, Jason's Lyric, and she definitely was a 90s heartthrob, you know, so to speak. And I feel like, considering that Keenan Ivory Wayans is a comedian, I was impressed with the way he handled himself in this film. And what's funny is he also wrote and directed this film as well. And this was an action comedy, which he starred in and directed. And it wasn't a far cry from his success in his spoof movie, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. And I feel like this movie is better than even that one. You know, he manages to fare well with good action sequences and stick a lot of funny shit and dialogue throughout the way. I think his partnership with Jada Pinkett lives up to the comedic expectations as this sexy but, you know, tough assistant to Shame. She goes by Peaches in the film, which is hilarious. It's one of those films where I remember when it first came out in 1994. I was not even 10 years old, and I went to go see this with my father, you know, and the only words I could describe this film as funny as hell, because, you know, he was not only good in the title role, but, you know, to me, the other characters in the film really stole the film, really stole the spotlight. You know, you have Jada Pinkett, who was exceptional in the film. You have Charles S. Dutton. I think they were two of the best things in the film. Andrew Duvall, if you're not too familiar with him, he's the one that plays Wishmaster. He was in this film. He was a great villain, which we really don't get nowadays. You know, usually we get a really good star in the title role, and then the villain sometimes it's like a crapshoot. And he was outstanding. We have a young Sally Richardson, who was the damsel in distress kind of villain also in the movie. This movie will have you cracking up with laughter, I promise you. You know, there's scenes in this film where you crack up to the most stupidest things. You have Keenan Ivory Wayans singing to dogs and James Brown songs in order for them not to attack him, and it actually works thanks to Peaches. You have these impossible sequences, these outlandish sequences, especially in the start of the film, where he's in a gunfight with the mafia in a hotel, and while the gunfight is ensuing, you know, the FBI or whatever, the police are coming up the stairs, elevator and stairs, and he manages to run across the lobby, shoot his way through these windows. Mind you, he's on the upper floor, and manages to safely land in a limousine with Peaches in it. It's just hilarious. His comedic genius, the way he just, what can I say? You know, the Wayans brothers, Kim, the Wayans family, man, they're so gifted, and you can tell they get it from this man. And, you know, don't watch it on a regular television either. You know, it won't do you justice. I saw many people complaining about that this movie was absurd, and it's an action comedy at the end of the day. You know, it it's supposed to be absurd. You know, besides most movies that are in the action category are pretty absurd anyways. You have the Fast and the Furious franchise, which I feel gets more outlandish as each movie passes. When is someone gonna die in that franchise, right? But people die in this film. It's a well placed action comedy back in the 90s. I feel like this movie shows off the superb acting skills of Jada, which Hollywood at that time had nothing but praise for her. In almost every scene that Keenan and Jada are together, you know, Jada usually outshines him, and I think that was purposely in the film. You know, in addition, I think Sally Richardson is very sensual. She's dangerous. In this film, she's absolutely gorgeous. She was one of the most beautiful black actresses that, you know, in Hollywood at that time. And I feel like they were ignoring her because she could have done so much more than what she did, and I don't think that was her fault. I think she was typecast in many ways. But if anyone wants to see more of, you know, Sally Richardson, you know, she's in a lot of things. Currently, I think Family Law. Or she was on Family Law back in, you know, the early 2000s. And, you know, Charles S. Dutton, to me, he was The Rock back in the day, and he overacts at times, but it adds to the comedy of the movie. I think it's genius. This movie has a lot of action scenes that were pretty well done. You know, there's a fight scene between two female leads, which I felt like we could have got more. You know, it could have been a longer fight. I think it was cut a little too short. But I think this movie was definitely one of those nostalgic factors for me. It's a movie that whenever it's playing or whenever I see it, it's a movie that I have to see. I think this is one of the funniest Wayans movies. You know, the plot obviously wasn't complicated, and the comedy added to what was already a pretty set film when it comes to the story, which was amazing for a comedy. I think this movie was top notch. It was done right. It has everything you want. A drug lord. You have a great villain. A comedic sidekick. You have the treacherous agent. You know, it's one of those movies that I can't see this movie getting old. And they've made something awesome. Obviously, this plot could be rehashed in many ways, and it has been rehashed. Shaft took a lot. The remake with Samuel Jackson definitely took a lot from this film. I'm surprised the Wayans didn't sue. But this is definitely one of my guilty pleasures. It's even hard to rank. You know, most of these films in the 90s for me are 8 and better. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt and go watch this for yourself. 8.5 out of 10. I have to seriously give it that. It gets me every time I see it. Definitely. Let me know what you thought about the review. You know, hit me up on the Discord. Hit that like button. Hit the notification bell. And we're gonna continue going through these 90s films as this week passes. So, peace, and look forward to seeing you in the next.